All right. Well, we're going to kick things off this morning. We are super excited and honored to welcome two phenomenal leaders from the University of Denver, Dr. Chris Whitt and Elizabeth Bullock. Before we get started, I do want to let folks know that there is live transcript captioning option available. If you do want to enable those services, if you click on the bottom right and show subtitles, you can select your settings there. And then we will have a recorded option available as well for folks that will have captioning, and a shout out to the IT team, as always, Tremaine and the team, and Alex Martinez and the team for helping us with captioning and the webinar services today. We are really excited for this community leadership conversation. And before I hand the mic over to Provost Clark, I do want to start by acknowledging and saying happy Passover. For those who do take part in Passover and don't use electronics during the time, we will have a recorded version that we'll share with the community that folks can watch on demand outside of the holiday celebrations. And so we do want to let folks know about that. We also want to say Ramadan Mubarak to those who are celebrating Ramadan. And we do want to let folks know that those folks who are in the Muslim community are fasting during this time. And so they may need additional time and support. So we're always want to be cognizant of that as a community. And then lastly, I do want to say that it's Holy Week for those who celebrate Easter. And so tomorrow is Good Friday and then Easter Sunday. So we want to wish a happy holiday celebration to all of those who are celebrating this week. And we know it's a very important week for that. And then the last thing, as always, we do want to take a moment in a spirit of healing and peace and justice to acknowledge and honor the indigenous peoples of the land upon which the University of Denver stands, the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute tribes. Like the history of so many institutions in the American West, ours is complex and sometimes painful. And in recognition of this fact and to underscore our commitment to inclusion and equity, we do commit at C+V to listen to and affirm the stories of all in our community. We know that so many others do in our community as well. We do invite you to visit the DU Native American Indigenous Initiative's website to learn more. There's some really powerful programming going on right now, particularly around the murder of Indigenous women that are going on constantly in this country and in the world. And so there's some really powerful programming that's taking place over the coming weeks. So we do encourage you to check out the site. And with that, I will hand over the mic to Provost Clark and go off camera.
Thank you, Chase, and thank you for recognizing the various religious observations that our colleagues are engaged in this very week. Last night I was at Hillel for the first night Seder, and there surely were 120 or more students and family members who were there celebrating with Hillel and Chabad, and it was very lively, and someone did find the Afikoman, and it was not me. So at any rate, best wishes to all in our community with these very important religious observations this week. I am thrilled now to be in conversation with my two colleagues, Elizabeth Bullock, who is General Counsel, who joined us just over a year ago. It's probably a year and a couple of weeks at this point. How long is it, Elizabeth?
I think you're exactly right. A year and some change.
All right.
I think I had my anniversary in mid-March.
Well, congratulations. And we're so thrilled to have you in our midst. And likewise, Dr. Christopher Whitt, who I believe it's been about 2 years since you joined us. And Chris is our Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. So thank you both for joining us this morning. It's a real pleasure. With your relative newness in mind, although three of us are relatively new to campus, would love to hear about your first impressions in coming to DU, maybe what it is that attracted you in coming to DU, and then what your first impressions have been, whether they affirmed what had attracted you or whether you had other observations on the campus. So Chris, maybe I'll start with you because you've been here a little bit longer.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Good morning to everybody on the call. And you got it right, Mary. I've been here for 2 years and 4 days.
All right.
I started,
counting.
April 4th of 2021. So I was just, when you were talking, I was looking at the date and I was like, oh, 2 years and 4 days. 2 years and 5 days. My math is off. But in any case, I would say something that attracted me to DU as something that I kind of perceived as an outsider that has been confirmed since I got here was the fact that there are so many areas of engagement. And what I mean by that is folks don't leave any particular type of work just to one person or one office or anything like that, that you see folks engaging within the academic units, the operational units, and then particularly from my perspective, when it comes to DEI, it was heartening to see that there were folks who were, doing work and asking questions and connecting with one another in spaces beyond those labeled DEI. That's always a good thing to see. And I think that colleagues across senior leadership would probably agree on that they're kind of like offshoots of their kind of centralized work happening in so many different places across the university. And that really does help you when you're thinking strategically, when you're thinking long-term, when you're thinking about how to engage, to have at least kind of that first wave of touch points to say, all right, there's some places where there's a deep interest, and then how do we build from there and not forget that there's that work going on. So that would be something that, was confirmed. I mean, and I think that it also is something that keeps all of us on our toes. The fact that we have colleagues who are engaged, who try to, raise the bar within the spaces that they occupy. So that would be probably my, first impression that was confirmed once I got here.
Very helpful. Elizabeth would love to hear yours, and I'm mindful I was on your search committee, so I hope there was no bait and switch in what attracted you and what you've found since you've been here.
No, thank you so much. I think what really made me fall in love with DU during the interview process was this real sense of optimism and a common vision for where the institution is trying to go, and a sense of momentum and a pathway to get there. So I was in the middle of interviewing when DU earned its R1 status, and I was able to see sort of at the beginning of my interview that goal on the horizon that everyone was getting really excited that we might be achieving. And then the sense of success and, okay, now we have to keep it and lean into this status. It really struck me that the campus is really unified around some common goals and also values. And it was that really drew me in. And then since being here, I think that's just been reaffirmed as the commitment to the 4D experience, the commitment to an institution for the common good. Those aren't just sort of platitudes that people say. It really is part of the identity of the university and the commitment that the people that make this place work every day really believe in. And it's just been awesome to be a part of.
Well, in that regard, Elizabeth, I might start this next question with you. What is it that makes you you? What is it that you would most wish for the community to be aware of in terms of what makes you tick, or what makes you, again, most excited to be here at DU? You've already, indicated some of those factors.
Yeah, so I credit a lot of what makes me to my parents. So they are both lawyers and are civil rights attorneys, and they amazingly have practiced law together for almost 40 years. I can't imagine working and being married to the same person, working with and being married to the same person, but they did it swimmingly and continue to do so. But I think what they instilled in me growing up was careers of purpose and wanting to make an impact and using whatever skill set you have to help people. And when I was a young lawyer trying to figure out, what do I want my career to look like? How am I going to do something that is for the public good? I sort of stumbled back into a love for higher ed. And It's just such an honor to work for a mission-driven institution, and it's such a privilege to be in a position to support all of the good and life-changing work that universities do. And I really credit that to the values that my parents instilled in me of practicing law for the good of others.
You must have had interesting dinner table conversations.
All sorts of dinner table conversations, yes.
Very funny. Chris, would love to hear what it is that makes you you. And again, it may be in part what it is that drew you to DU.
I think that at the core of everything that I've always done and been engaged in is people and justice. Like those are the two things where if I look for kind of this common element, like I'm a sociable person, I have lots of connections across the country. I'm the type of person that tries to add to my networks, to add to my friends, as opposed to, oh, it's time to refresh, it's time to kind of boot people and bring other people in. And I think that helps in this work. And, having that justice element, I mean, going back to my dissertation is the impact of the racial wealth gap on Black political participation, like really looking through a lens of justice as to how elements of wealth and wealth accumulation really, have that impact on people having a voice in the political system. For those that don't know, I'm a political scientist. So I spent, a good chunk of my career as a political science professor, department chair, all of those things. And in that, not only in working with my colleagues and working with students, really thinking about people at that core. I mean, the work of political science is looking at those interactions, those behaviors, looking at people. And I've always engaged in things, even when I was a professor, I was also engaged in DEI type work. And whenever I engage in that work, because I have that centering in people and justice, then I'm always thinking about the systems, the processes, things that will last, versus solely saying, well, all right, we're going to roll out 5 programs and they'll start and they'll have a sunset. Hopefully you get what you can get out of that. Yes, that is part of the work. But I feel like a bigger part of this calling is to ask the tough questions as to how are people able to thrive as their full and authentic selves, or in other words, their full humanity within our space. And then what do we need to do in terms of adjustments that will last for people to do that? So, I mean, I'm driven from those, those spaces, from that motivation. And I would say, much like Elizabeth said, lots of support from family, lots of open conversations among family about politics when I was growing up, about, the good that was happening and the bad that was happening. And lastly, being from Baltimore. I've seen, as my career has pulled me across the country, that kind of the directness, the bluntness, the pride in being who I am and being a Black person. Being from Baltimore, I didn't have some of the limitations that I've seen friends have to navigate in other spaces. Baltimore is not a perfect place, but it's a place that fed me, lifted me up. So all of those things together get what y'all got now, me.
It's funny, you referenced Baltimore. I spent the last 30 years, as you know, in Washington, and my observation was people from Baltimore are huge boosters of Baltimore. They take such incredible pride in where they're from. So, but also channeling, Chris, I'm going to start with you with the next question. Channeling one's full humanity. We would love to know more about what makes you you by virtue of some rapid fire questions. So I remember when I was asked these rapid fire questions. We'll start with what music is on your playlist, and then I'll turn to a couple others.
What music is on my playlist? I would say lately, I've been going through a big No Limit Records phase. So I've been going back to the late 90s, listening to a whole lot of Master P and Mystical. My mom's side of the family is from New Orleans, so I have an appreciation for hip hop from New Orleans. Overall, if you ask my kids what's dad's favorite music, they're gonna say hip hop. I like a lot of other music, but hip hop's it. But if I were to go on Spotify, anything right now, the last thing I listen to in terms of music, other than podcasts and stuff, probably was like the best of No Limit. So some people know what I'm talking about, some people don't. So
All right, in a related fashion, what books are on your nightstand?
Let me see. I actually have a book on my nightstand right now called called Presidencies Derailed.
Mm,
And
wow,
it's
we
about
have some current events. Yes.
yeah, so it's university presidencies derailed.
Ah,
So it's like lessons learned from university presidencies at various levels. So like the comprehensive state institution, the liberal arts institution, the big research one, and presidencies that didn't really make it through the first 5 years. And it's just these stories where they kind of code it so you don't know what school it is, but it's real interesting. So I know that sounds kind of nerdy, like, oh, my nightstand is higher ed leadership, but that's actually what's sitting on my nightstand right now. So I have that, and the other book that I have on my nightstand is one that I haven't started, but it's Subtract. So I haven't
which
started
was
that.
given to you by the chancellors.
Yeah, so my
Quiz.
nightstand's really boring. So yeah. Thank you for outing me on that.
We'll have a reading group on Subtract. The last thing that I wanted to ask you in these rapid fire questions is, now that we're using air quotes beyond COVID, I use the air quotes because I think I know more people now with COVID than I did almost any time. But now that we're beyond COVID, what sort of things are you looking forward to doing in the way of travel, or going to hear live music or theater or whatever it
Yeah.
might be?
I mean, we've started to, get out a good bit. I think this weekend we're taking the kids to see Disney on Ice. So hey, not too long ago we went to see the Bluey live show. I have a 3-year-old son and a 5-year-old son, so it's not just me and my wife going to these shows. We're taking the sons, but we're actually planning a trip to Louisiana. We're gonna try to go to Essence Music Festival. I've been a bunch of times. My wife's never been, and we have family in Louisiana. So my mom lives in Baton Rouge. So the game plan is to, leave the boys with her for a couple of days and go enjoy some R&B and hip hop and soul music at the Superdome in New Orleans, like that 4th of July weekend. So we haven't bought our tickets and stuff, but we're determined to make it happen.
Sounds marvelous. Sounds absolutely marvelous. And Elizabeth, you can totally identify this in terms of a 3-year-old, yes, and love of Disney. So
Yes.
I'm going to start, Elizabeth, with the last question first, now that we're beyond COVID. What sort of things are you engaging in or looking forward to with travel, with live music or theater?
Well, we would definitely be going to Disney on Ice this weekend if we weren't going to be traveling. Looking at our spring and summer, we're doing a lot of travel to see family. There's parts of our family that still haven't gotten to meet my 3-year-old daughter. And so we're spending a lot of time. All of our trips this summer are going to be with extended family and immediate family, and really helping to restore some relationships that didn't get as much time during the pandemic. So that's something that I'm really, really looking forward to. Like Chris, I have a 3-year-old. We both have COVID babies that are now coming out and realizing that there's this whole world out there that they didn't get to see for the first couple of years. And so I sort of count on Chris to keep me in the loop on other things going around town, like Paw Patrol Live, which we also got to experience earlier this spring.
And you're up close and personal with Disney characters, as I recall. Tell us more, if you will, about that experience.
Yeah, so over spring break, we went on a Disney cruise. And particularly if you had told me peak COVID that you are going to voluntarily go on a cruise ship and it's going to be a Disney cruise, I would have said you're insane. I would never do that. But here we are. Parenting does weird things to people. And we went on a Disney cruise and had a fantastic time. We went down the Baja Peninsula of Mexico, and my daughter loved it, meeting Mickey Mouse. Like, he's her ultimate celebrity. So it was a great week.
Fabulous. So tell me what's on your playlist.
So I've been going back to some music that I was really into more in high school. So listening to, but it's still sort of throwback music. So a lot of Paul Simon recently, Jim Croce, which is music that we listened to a lot in my house as a kid. My dad's a big Jim Croce person, and I'm sort of getting back into it. I listened to a lot of Garth Brooks, sort of old school Garth Brooks. So sort of the singer-songwriter sort of stuff is what I've been playing most often recently.
All right. And on your nightstand, do you have a teetering stack of books, or what are you looking forward to reading?
Well, I've got my little Kindle, so I don't have the physical book so much. But so I just wrapped up reading An Immense World by Ed Young, and it's all about the senses that animals and insects and sort of other creatures have and how they perceive the world. And it was amazing. It was sort of like the best parts of a fun high school or college science class. And I think I drove my husband nuts saying, did you know that these butterflies can see ultraviolet light? Or did you know that these bugs can pick up on and communicate through vibrations? It was amazing. So that was a great book. Highly recommend it. I am just starting and only a couple pages into something that's really different from what I would normally read. It's an LA crime detective sort of noir story called Your House Will Pay. And I'm reading it because one of my law school classmates wrote it. She decided not to be a lawyer and to be a novelist. And I thought I'd see sort of how that was working out for her. So I picked up her book, and I'll let you know how it turns out.
Well, we lead parallel lives in that regard. My moot court partner in law school, Ayelet Waldman, has also become a crime and detective author of some fame and popularity. So that's a funny thing. Let's see, you both have been on teams, you've led teams. As you're doing work in a team, are there role models that you're channeling as you're thinking about what would so-and-so do? And Chris, I'm going to turn to you first. But are there individuals who are in your mind who you're thinking, how would they approach a particular situation as you're doing your work?
I guess I pull on that from a few different perspectives. Sometimes I'll go back to some of the leadership examples that got from the first president I worked for, as a tenure track faculty member and a department chair and all of that. Steve Balls, he was the president of Augustana College when I was there for 11 years. And I mean, just the fact that I had an actual relationship with him as a young faculty member moving up reminded me of the importance of checking in with the people who work for me, and really reminding people of the bigger goal. It's not to say he was a perfect leader, but at the same time, I look back to some lessons learned just from seeing him do what he did, as well, and going into senior leadership and looking back and saying, oh wow, that was kind of impressive how he was able to engage here or there. And I mean, there's plenty of other people I actually know, but I also spent a lot of years teaching the American presidency. So a lot of times I'll think back on, places where presidents were, the various styles of leadership, like Roosevelt with a chaotic leadership style, other people where you have Kennedy with more of a micromanaging style. And, most of the time I'm looking at those presidencies I used to teach about to say, well, what are the things I don't want to do? And then, kind of find my space. And lastly, I'm a huge sports fan. So when you're thinking of a team, you think of some of the best coaches. Like, you think of I'm a Lakers fan, so Phil Jackson. I'm not doing the Zen thing and giving people books and stuff, but you think of a Phil Jackson versus a Pat Riley versus I'm a Ravens fan, John Harbaugh, whoever. But being that when I do have some free time, which isn't a lot, I'll watch sports shows or listen to sports radio to kind of get a release from everything we do. And a lot of times they're talking about coaching and stuff. So there are moments where I'm trying to release, but then I'm hearing something and I'm like, oh, I shouldn't do this or I should do that. So those three areas would be areas like the personal connections, the presidency, and just political leadership and sports leadership would be the places that I kind of think about when I'm kind of navigating my team, being a member of the team as well as leading the team.
It's so interesting that you referred in part to your work on the presidential history, the political science work that you do, because as you know, I still teach women's history. And one of the things that I convey to my students is just the immense courage that these women had. We start in the 1600s. When you think of what they did, which is totally against the norm. And so really trying to convey to my students these lessons from history, as you just highlighted. So Elizabeth, would love to hear, you've been on teams, you've led teams. What is it that you are thinking about as you're facing difficult decisions? And boy, you have them by the hour in the work that you do.
Yeah, no, people are rarely happy when they're calling the general counsel. You know, I really think of leadership as work in lifting other people up. And I think as general counsel, that's particularly true. Like, my success isn't measured by me, it's measured by how did this work out for my client, the university? Were we able to get through the situation in a way that was better than what it might not have been if I hadn't been involved? And I think of our office as a team in the same way, that if I'm setting up the lawyers and staff in our office to be doing good work and growing, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So it's really about supporting each other and thinking as a team, and that we all do better when we're all doing our best, as opposed to thinking that sort of the self-promotion or tearing someone else down to get on top, like that doesn't get us where we're trying to go. It's funny though, as you're talking about sort of women's history, when I think of the folks that I emulate, the person that I end up thinking of the most, and Mary, you've heard me talk about her before, is the judge that I clerked for right out of law school. So for folks that don't know, sometimes new lawyers get an opportunity to work in judges' chambers for a year or 2 years, and they help the judge prepare for cases. Sometimes you're drafting decisions and things like that. And the judge that I worked for is a federal court of appeals judge. She was the first woman appointed to her court. She was appointed by President Carter, and was also among the first women in her law school class at Harvard. She was really breaking all sorts of glass ceilings in her career. And she took really seriously mentoring her law clerks, helping us understand what it meant to be sort of a good lawyer, practicing with integrity, really fidelity to the law, while also sort of maintaining a sense of levity and humility and frankly, some spunk that she brings to life. And so she's really a role model for me in my legal practice of leaning into who you are. She didn't get to where she was by trying to sort of hide her femaleness, and really, I think, stood up to and broke down some barriers as she was living through her career. And so that's a real model that I strive to live up to.
And what's funny for me in that regard is I used to write about women's history, and I wrote about Stephanie Seymour as the first woman judge on the 10th Circuit. Carter was so instrumental in appointing women judges, and here you've lived history. So that's a fun thing. But Chris, you were just about to say something.
Sorry about that. Just something, as Elizabeth was talking, something else just popped in my head quickly. I think that one of the things that I really bring into my leadership, and it's rooted back to some of the things that I learned from Steve and looking at other folks, is that engaging with members of my team on a number of trajectories. What's their individual trajectory in terms of what might be next and what might be after that, and how might there be those moments where decisions might need to be made where we have a choice. We can do it this way and it'll be accomplished, or we can do it this way and it'll be accomplished and it will serve as an elevation point for this person as they're looking through their career. Or there may be things that we're looking at as a unit or as a university where we have kind of like choose your own adventure. What are we going to choose that will get, we may be able to get something accomplished in the moment, but we may go a different path that could even be a harder path, but it's going to set us up better for the next things that we have to accomplish. So I really think that's one of the keys to the ways that I try to aim to engage with my team, is thinking of our collective trajectory as well as their individual trajectories in our decision making.
So in a related fashion, Chris, and I'm going to stay with you and then turn to Elizabeth, what have you enjoyed most about leading at DU? And I'm also mindful next week you will be at your national association and you are playing a leadership role there as well. So it would be wonderful if you could share that out with folks. But what have you enjoyed most about these leadership roles?
I would say that, in my leadership role here at DU, leading at Creighton University, leading at Augustana College, was the depth of, relationships that you're able to build when you actually are not operating as a dictator, when you're looking for feedback, when you're looking for collaboration. So at each one of those stops, there are people who I've collaborated with. There are people here who I collaborate with. There are people on this call who I would like to collaborate in the future with. I don't know who I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. So if those folks, folks will reach out, I love to have conversations. I love to find places where we have those intersections of interest and we can kind of put our energies together. But I've become better by being open to hearing what people who work adjacent to me, people who work for me, whatever it may be, what they have to say also. And I think that kind of opens the door to, and that's something that I particularly enjoy here at DU. As I said, there was a lot of work that was already underway. So I got to learn, how did we get there? How are we moving forward? Okay, well, now that I've heard it, this part I think really works. Now bringing in my perspective, we may need to adjust over here, whatever else. Oh, here's some new things I want to interject. And I've had, good relationships and good engagement in that space. But going to next week, I'll be in Baltimore for the National Association of Diversity Officers in Higher Ed annual meeting. And I'm on the board of directors and I'm on a number of the committees, in terms of professional development, conference planning. I do a few things with task force with some, navigating the politics of DEI in this current moment. So actually NCORE has invited a few of us board members to go talk about navigating the politics and DEI at the same time. So I think NCORE is at the end of May. So I'll probably have to jet out for a day there to represent Natalie and that. But I really have learned a lot in terms of being constantly connected with those other leaders at other institutions at other states, some private, some public, some community colleges, some R1, some small liberal arts, where I'm confronted with similar and sometimes different challenges than what we have here at DU, but staying engaged nationally gives me kind of this constant flow of examples. And it also gives me a space where there may be something that could be foreign to my experience here at DU, and I'm able to have this national network of other leaders, and I'm able to say, hey, have you encountered this? And they're like, oh yeah, then I'm able to think through it. But I really feel like this is a moment where across the country, we really do need to have a certain level of unity and organization to keep pushing this work forward, because this work is important, not just for our higher ed institutions, but for our nation, that we can't abandon this work of being intentionally inclusive, of creating these spaces where people can thrive as their full selves. So I'm proud to do that work with my colleagues across the country.
It must be such a pleasure to be with people who are sort of walking the same walk as you are, and to be able to compare notes and to brainstorm, and but just that profound shared experience that you have. It's critically important. Elizabeth, would love to hear what you've enjoyed most about your leadership role here at DU, and also engagements with professional colleagues, professional associations.
Yeah. So one of the real highlights of my job in coming into DU has been really the team of people in the Office of the General Counsel. A lot of folks on this call probably don't have occasion to interact with our office, but it's really just a stellar group of really smart, talented, warm women. We're all women in my office, and just you couldn't ask for a group of better lawyers to be working for the university. And so that's been a real delight. And then I'll say also, my job isn't effective if people don't want to have me at the table. If they don't want to seek my advice, they don't have to as a general matter. And one of the things that has been really wonderful is how quickly folks welcomed me into the fold and brought me into the conversation. And it didn't necessarily have to turn out that way. And it was a bit of a risk coming here of how am I going to be received? Will folks want to bring me into the conversation? And it's really just exceeded my expectations. The community as a whole has been so welcoming and really just great to work with. And even when we're navigating tough situations, finding some levity in those and being able to keep a good sense of humor and a sort of bigger picture in mind has been really great. In terms of professional organizations, I'm really leaning in and trying to get more active in NACUA, which is the National Association for College and University Attorneys. It's a really strong professional organization of higher ed lawyers, a great resource and source of wisdom for those of us who practice in higher ed. And I'll just say that these professional relationships of other general counsels at other universities, other attorneys who I've worked with or met sort of through NACUA is really helpful, because sometimes you need to say, like, I don't even know how to think about this situation, but I know that other universities have been through this too, and maybe I can learn from their wisdom. And so that's been a really valuable source of both professional development and you're right, some sort of comfort and community of folks that understand the complexities and challenges and real delights of working as lawyers for colleges and universities.
That's my impression of NACUA, that there is a real leaning into sharing best practices and brainstorming, that it's a very supportive community. So glad to hear for both of you that you have these professional associations that are so stimulating and engaging. I have one last question to ask you both, and I also want to share with our community. I'm going to be turning to you soon for questions, and a couple have already been posted, so thank you. Let's see, I'm going to return to Chris for this question. What are you most hopeful for the DU community? What is it that you would love to see the DU community enjoy moving forward?
I would say, and some folks who've heard me engage in meetings or one-on-ones or in other spaces, you may have heard me use this phrase before, but really moving us closer and closer to being a destination of choice. And what I mean by that is a destination of choice for people who are looking for a place to serve as staff, to serve as faculty, as administrators, as a space for folks to be students, and a destination of choice for people of a wide variety of intersecting identities. As I mentioned earlier, really looking for this to be a place where individuals, their families, their friends feel high levels of confidence that they'll be able to thrive in their full humanity, in all their intersecting identities, where they're not having to leave elements of themselves at home, or they don't feel like they have to wear a mask or present some version of themselves. We're always working to get better in that space. But I think, as we work to get better and we actually do better, that we continue to get into a space in the national conversation where folks say, oh, you want to be whatever it is, a law student, you want to be a dean, you want to be an undergrad, and you really want to feel comfortable, you want to feel celebrated, you want to feel seen. The ultimate goal is for DU to be on the tips of people's tongues when they're talking about that. And I recognize that you go through ebbs and flows. I recognize that this is always a work in progress. I'm not naive enough to think that we are going to be on the tip of every tongue across the country and the world today or tomorrow. But I think if we're always striving towards that, and that being the goal that we have in mind, that we can then unpack it within our individual spaces. What are we doing in this office, in this department, in this area to get closer to that goal than we were before. There's lots of minutia of structures and things like that that we have to talk through. But I think if we have that overall goal in the back of our minds, we should be able to do well. And I feel like we're on that way.
And I understand your reference to destination of choice to relate to staff, faculty, and students, really the full community.
Yes.
That this be a destination
full
of choice.
community that, yeah. And I mean, I think, destination of choice, not only for people outside DU considering coming, but for people who are here to recognize, hey, I'm at a destination of choice. If I am to move on elsewhere, which people are free to do so, that, hey, the bar is going to have to be really high for this next place for me to choose to move my career or whatever else, because I'm in such a place of choice. I feel seen, I feel supported, I feel celebrated here. And, that is the real goal. That is the real thing that we're looking for.
So Elizabeth, I'd love to hear from you, and then we're going to open up to the community. But what is now that you've been here a year, what is your greatest hope for the DU community of what opportunities they might have moving forward?
So I'm really excited to see what happens with the Kennedy Mountain campus. I feel like this year we've just scratched the surface of all of the potential that it has. It's so inspiring to hear the stories that have come out of it, of students having these incredible experiences, building friendships, feeling belonging, maybe discovering an interest in the outdoors that they didn't have before. But I'm excited to see what's next. What brilliant ideas do our faculty come up with around how to use the space? How can staff use KMC for team building and other opportunities? I can't wait to see everything that ends up adding to the experience that all of us have at DU. It's just a really, really exciting moment to be just beginning the journey of what the Mountain Campus can be.
And it's such a beautiful space. Whenever I go there, and I've been there every season now, I think such serenity, which I enjoy, I'll have to say, but it's such a beautiful, beautiful sight. I invite anyone who hasn't yet been there to experience it. So the first question that was posted by the community here, Elizabeth, I'll start with you, is how you understand your work to impact the strategic direction of the university. So someone referenced, we have strategic imperatives that relate to 4D and DEI, our research, our academic programming, and also the bold, enduring future of the university. How do you understand your work to be impacting those strategic directions?
So I think the place where our work is most directly connected is around bold and enduring future. The core mission of the Office of the General Counsel is to help manage legal risk for the institution. And associated with that is also reputational risk, financial risk come from legal risks, whether it could be because litigation can be quite expensive, or because if you're not doing some things right, there can be significant fines or penalties associated with that. So our office supports the university by helping make sure that we're controlling risk and trying to achieve what our goals are. But I think it's important to think sort of beyond that, my office is not being effective if legal risk is driving the decision of do we have this goal, or like, are we going to launch a new study abroad program, or are we going to lean into some new idea that a faculty member has? Like I view our office as helping to figure out the best way to get there and to achieve the goals that the university has, and not to be a barrier to achieving those. And so we manage risk, but we always need to do that with an eye towards what are the strategic imperatives, what's the university trying to achieve, and how can we enable that achievement, as opposed to being sort of an office that says, no, we couldn't possibly. Like that's not a framing that that we should be bringing to what we do. Our goal should always be, I see what goal the client has in mind. Now, what's the best way to get there?
Very helpful. So Chris, the same question to you. How do you see your work impacting the strategic direction of the university?
I mean, even if we think of the 5 strategic imperatives, and you think of a diverse and inclusive campus and community, we see that as the foundation, the base of the 5. And in that kind of mindset, anytime there's a strategic direction or there's an imperative or a key performance indicator, whatever there may be, a measure or a goal, I really try to look at it through the lens of DEI to say, hey, how can DEI be foundational to this? Because can we really achieve any of our goals to the level that we'd like to achieve them if people feel excluded? If people feel like they can't be their full self in engaging in that work? If we are not opening the door for the best and the brightest because we haven't worked to eliminate various barriers to either entrance into our community or advancement through our community. So I really see DEI as foundational. I see the work of the division of DEI as foundational, but also I see us as a service division. I see us as a partnering division, that in no university across the country is all of that foundational work that's related to DEI done only by people with DEI in their name. That we're here to work as conveners. We're here to work in terms of, hey, here are the bigger goals. How can we be partners to help you within your particular space to get towards those goals? How can we, in other cases, help put out fires? Because it's not always smiles and goals and things like that. A lot of times there are moments where we have either messed up or the world has messed up, and it's, bringing to the forefront something that may be a problem that already exists in our community, and now it's just being noticed, or it could be problems from the external that just enter into our space. In any case, we have to be nimble in that, but always remembering that we should look at DEI as foundational to each of the things that we try to get accomplished.
So Chris, I'm going to turn to you first for our next community question and then over to Elizabeth. But the community member has asked in a way related to your last comments. You both work with very complex matters and difficult matters. What strategies do you have for approaching complexity or conflict where there are different views held by the various parties with whom you're working?
I think that one of the first things to do is to, as you're aiming to engage with the different parties, is to do your very best to be able to unpack the potential conflicts, to unpack the positions, but not just to say, well, this is their position, this is, the position on the other side, but try to have a little bit more understanding about the people, about their lived experience, their perspectives, as you start to kind of unpack to decide the best ways to engage. And as you do that unpacking, that puts you in a position to be able to say, well, this seems to be a challenge where we can all, first thing, sit around the table, talk it through. Another challenge after you've taken that moment to unpack, kind of breathe, see where you are in terms of, where's my privilege, where's my perspective, whatever it may be, to say, all right, well, no, in this case, I think it'd be best for my team member to engage with this person, me to engage here, let's gather some more information, then we'll come together. All of this is to say that you don't have a cookie cutter way of navigating each of these things, because you do want to recognize and honor the complexities, not only of the circumstances, but the complexities and the dynamism that's brought by whichever, if it's groups, individuals, whomever, who are bringing either a complaint or presenting an opportunity or whatever it may be. I don't like to do a lot of just quick, oh, well, you know how we do it. Something comes in, we're a factory, we respond immediately, and that's it. No, I think that there needs to be that beat, that moment to think, and that moment to kind of game plan how we're going to best serve everybody as individuals as well as their interests.
Thank you. And Elizabeth, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in terms of how do you address complexity? You surely deal with a lot of conflict. How do you navigate that conflict with differing perspectives? Any strategies that you would offer?
So I think it's really important that folks feel empowered to say, what are the things that you're worried about? What are your concerns? What do you think we need to be taking into account when making this decision? I try to be really mindful that sometimes the voice of the general counsel can be a bit of a gorilla in the room, that it can take up a lot of space, and in some ways there can be a perception that dissent isn't welcome from whatever it is that I'm voicing an opinion on. And so I try to be really mindful and sort of check that sort of privilege of my role to make sure that people feel like I really want to hear the disagreement. I want there to be a conversation around the table where everyone's different perspectives are being heard, because I definitely don't have the absolute best judgment and absolutely right decision on everything. And I really view my role as an advisor, but not decision maker in nearly all cases. And so making sure that, one, you are inviting those diverse perspectives into how are we going to navigate this sticky issue, that you're bringing to the table the people that have a stake in what the decision is being made. And then making sure that there's not a perception that I think that my view of it is sort of the end all be all, because I don't. And I try to bring a lot of humility to my role, that I view a situation through a particular lens as an attorney and as the lawyer for the institution, but that lens is not necessarily better than anyone else's perspective, and that we reach better decisions when there is an opportunity to bring in differing viewpoints and then hopefully settle on an outcome that's best for the university as a whole. But I try to not lose sight of the power dynamic that can come up in those meetings, and really work to build the relationships with people so that they understand that that's not my perspective on things, and that I really do welcome disagreement. And if I give advice that someone doesn't take, then I'm actually not taking that personally. That as long as the advice was heard and that I gave good advice, then I've done my job. And if the client says, yep, I get it, I understand the risk, we're going to go a different direction, great, and I'm on board. And my next question is like, okay, how can I help? But I think the ability to disagree and dissent and try to all reach a better decision through that is really important.
Very, very helpful. I very much appreciate both of your reflections on those questions. And I have so much to learn from the both of you in terms of how you approach this. Thank you so much for our conversation this morning. I appreciate your starting bright and early with our community. So again, I salute Elizabeth Bullock, our new general counsel, and Christopher Whitt, our somewhat new, new is me, yes, Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, though it begs the question whether anyone is new as they've started out during COVID. I am now going to turn it to Chase McNamee, my colleague with whom I have the pleasure of directing the Community Plus Values work. So Chase, thank you so much for all your work in engaging with all of our different constituencies to support our Community Plus Values. And over to you to highlight some of our upcoming programs.
Wonderful. Yes. Thank you so much for moderating today, Mary. And thank you, Dr. Whitt and Elizabeth, for joining us. This has truly been one of, I think, the community's favorites series is getting to know the phenomenal leaders here at the University of Denver. And I'm excited to share that this winter and now into the spring, we have hosted over 50 of these community talks, which is exciting to hear. And that's through partnerships with ODI and the Heritage Months group with so many folks across campus. So thank you all so much for joining us. On the screen here, you can learn more about the work of C+V, and we actually want to invite you to the second annual Lunger at DU in partnership with the Communications 2040 students who are planning the entire event with their C+V team and the Colorado 6 and Mr. Dilpreet Jammu, our community partners, and that will be on May 20th this year, and it'll be a part of Alumni Weekend. So you can check out the Lunger at DU and all the phenomenal programming that the alumni team has put together at DU. And we're just honored to be in community. I do encourage folks to take care of themselves. The spring feels like it is an absolute launch into busyness that is a little bit different than other quarters. So do take care of yourselves. And if you have anything that you need, please feel free to always reach out to us at communityplusvalues@du.edu. And with that, thank you again, Dr. Whitt and Elizabeth, and wishing you both a wonderful rest of your week and a restful weekend. Take care, everyone.